Good morning, everyone. Lovely to have tea and coffee. I hope no one's spilt theirs on this lovely new floor. As you can see, it's not just me this morning up here. I'm joined. So my name is Joel, by the way. I'm one of the elders here. I'm also joined. You've got the three of us. So I'm not interviewing these guys. We're all going to. So the plan is over the next 20, 25 minutes, we're all going to share a little bit, because this morning is Vision Sunday, is part one. Next week will be part two, and we're just going to share as the story of us as a Church of Jubilee that we planted from the last 30 years, because we've been doing this story in Numbers, and we just come to the end of that series. And at the end of the book of Numbers, they recount Israel's journey. And so the journey from slavery in Egypt and the 40 years in the wilderness, and then to just about to enter the promised land. Before they enter, they recount the journey. And because of where we are, we thought it was just an appropriate time for us to recount or remember Jubilee's journey, to remember where we've come from, as next week we then look forward to where the people that we want to be and the places that we want to go. And so we're going to remember this week. I don't know if yesterday you saw on the news, it was the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, and they were remembering. And so I watched some of it, and there's just some of the relatives or friends of those who died, just reading the lists of names of the people who had died. And then just saying, and then they ended their little section just by saying a little bit about the person that they were personally close to, and then the next person carried on reading through the thousands of names of people who died in that event. And what they were doing is they were remembering. They were remembering those who died. They were remembering the sacrifices of those who gave their lives trying to rescue people from the towers or people on the plains. And they were giving thanks for their lives. And so we're doing something similar to that this morning in remembering. Okay, so the Israelites, they had these things called memorial stones, and they were the idea of these were when they walked past them is they would remember, right? Just like the 9/11 Ground Zero site, there's a memorial garden, there's statues, and they've made a memorial site there. So the Israelites, all those years ago, they built these stones that they would remember God's faithfulness. When they walked past it, they would remember, oh yeah, remember when that happened. Remember God's faithfulness there. Remember God's goodness to us there. And so they did two things. They reminded the people of who God was, and it also created in them an expectation that God is wanting to do that again now, and that he has got more for people. And so as we remember as Redeemer, but we will look back on Jubilee, the last 30 years, we remember all that God has done. We remember his faithfulness to us. But it should also create in us this holy expectation that God is wanting to pour his Spirit out on us as Redeemer. He is wanting to use us, and he has got more for us. All right, the best is yet to come. And so I just want to read you a passage before we get into some of the specifics of Jubilee. And this is from Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. And it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." And so the law of Moses, the people of Israel, they rehearsed this testimony. They rehearsed the faithfulness of God on a daily basis, and they taught it to their children. It was kind of the foundation of their social and family life. It was built on the repetition of the testimony of God's faithfulness. And so we just want to do some of that today. We want to remind ourselves of God's faithfulness. And as you're a parent here, that's what we're called to do. Is we're called to, as we sit down and have meals as a family, as we go, as we come back, we're called to talk to our children about the faithfulness of God. I always find these kind of passages challenging for me. I think, oh yeah, I need to do That's what I need to be doing more of that. We need to be building that into our family kind of rhythm. I wonder, people, if you not have kids or you're just with your friends or family, whoever it might be, I wonder, have you got people around you who are helping you to kind of cultivate that posture of gratitude in your heart, that you remind each other, remember when God did that? Remember, what's God going to do in the future with you? Have you got people around you who are going to help you with that? So one of the reasons we do groups as a church is we want to help build each other up and remind each other what God has done and pray for what God is going to do. So one of the reasons like the songs we've sung this morning, we're reminding ourselves of the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God, the power of God. And so I hope that you recognize, as we've read through Numbers together over the last couple of months, if you've been around, when people forget the testimony of God, when they forget what God has done, things tend to just go off a cliff and go horribly wrong. And when they remember what God has done, things go a lot better, and you see incredible supernatural victories that the people achieve because they remember the testimony, they remember the God that they serve, who he is, and what he has done. And so today we're going to remember. And so I'm going to take you through kind of a potted history of Jubilee, and then Rod and Pete are just going to share some of their memories of Jubilee and some of the things that we can celebrate and thank God for. Yes. And so, I just want to warn you, there's some incredible photos in here. Some that I would really like Sam to skip over a bit more quickly, and some we can stay on. And you'll see thank you so much if you've given us some photos from over the years just to help us kind of get this picture of what it's been like over the from Lancing to now, just to see some incredible styles, some incredible haircuts, maybe some faces. We should have invested in some bigger screens because some of the photos are a bit smaller, or there's so many people in them you can't pick out individuals. But we'll put up some of them afterwards. If you want to come close to the screens, you can come and have a look. But anyway, so this is our history as Jubilee. So it's all the way back in 1989. When God spoke to Terry Virgo, who was the leader of this family of churches called New Frontiers. He spoke to him in South Africa about planting a church in Lancing out of what is now called Emmanuel Church in Brighton, was then called Clarendon NFI Church. And so in 1990, Grace Church was planted with 50 people. It was led by a man called Richard Brunton, and they started off meeting in Boundstone School in Lancing, which I know has changed its name. I've completely forgotten I don't know what his name is now, but it's Boundstone School in Lancing. Sir Robert Woodard, thank you. And so that's where we started. And you can see some pictures here. Over the next 4 years, the numbers dropped a bit. There were some issues. Actually, at various points, some people said the church should close, and those there should just go back to wherever they'd come from, go back to Brighton, join other churches. But Terry, he said no. He had faith that God had spoken, and so the church kept on going. 1996, Adrian, who had been leading the church at that point, he stepped back, and Simon Walker, I think we've got a picture of Simon Walker, he started leading the church back in the day. I got the pleasure of meeting him a couple of months ago, having not met him before. There he is. And he looks pretty similar, I think. Right, Pete? He doesn't look too dissimilar. If you know him, he doesn't actually look too dissimilar to this now. He's aged well. And at that point, the church started to grow. It grew back to the 50-ish number that people had planted over the next 2 years. And then in 1999, we moved to the Luxor. And so there's the Luxor building in Lancing. And at this point, after, I can't remember how long it was, we were actually kicked out of the Luxor because someone, Rod hasn't put the blame on anyone. Rod's given me a lot of this info. It's Simon's fault. You know the guy we just saw in the photo? It's all his fault. We got locked out of the Luxor and kicked out because Simon apparently, hadn't paid the rent. Can you believe that? That's a true story. And not just for 1 month, but for several months. And so don't worry, we are currently paying the rent of this place. You're not going to turn up on a Sunday and the doors are going to be locked. So we moved, and then we moved to Lancing Parish Rooms, which again, I think we've got a picture of. And just over this period, over the end of the 90s, if you can remember back that far, we had these prophetic words that came separately, but all out of Isaiah 54, about enlarging the place of our tent. And so it's felt as a church that we should relocate to Worthing. And so we moved in 2000 to East Worthing Community Centre. And again, this one here, obviously, it's tiny on your screens. If you've been around for a while, you'll recognize some of those faces, a lot younger looking 21 years ago. And then from there, a couple of years later, we moved to Worthing High School. And at this point, Simon Walker, he moved to Bristol, and Colin Nichols started leading a church. I think we've got a picture of lovely Colin and Pam. And that was just a few years ago. But Colin started leading the church. 2004, Simon moved. Colin started leading the team. And in 2005, Pete Batson, I don't know if Pete's here this morning, he had a prophetic word saying the time has come to be planted in the ground. And that was a word that we took to mean this is the time for us to look for a building of our own, to no longer just rent somewhere on a Sunday morning, to have a space that we can use throughout the week. And 16 years later, here we are. After only 16 years of searching for a building, we found a building. Isn't that good? And so over that time, we've had several amazing leaders. So in 2006, we had our first eldership team, which was made up of Pete and Rod and Colin, who you saw in the photo. And then Martin Garrett joined a few years later, 2012. Martin, who now leads the church plant in Littlehampton, he joined the eldership team. 2015, changes started to happen. Rodney takes on the leadership of the eldership team in March 2015. And I don't know if this is, we'll put this to, I don't know, we'll link it in, but in June that year, just a couple of months later, under Rod's leadership, we see a move of the Spirit. Just with extra meetings being put on, and we just saw God move in an incredible way, an outpouring of his Spirit. And that year we appointed 3 more elders. Stuart, who was Haley referred to as the ill drummer, who should have been here. He became an elder of Jubilee, as did Colin Reed and Alex Beacon. And then in 2016, we had that year was a year of key prophetic words for us, of new wineskins, of warships, of bowmen igniting a structure. And it started just to prepare us for something that God was going to do. There were going to be changes and transition ahead. And so in 2017, Alex took on leading the team at Jubilee. And then following September, we from a prophetic word about planting, we planted Littlehampton. We planted Trinity Church in Littlehampton, which Martin went to lead. And then 1 year ago, or 18 months ago, Good Friday was Jubilee's last official meeting. Can you believe it? Our last official meeting. And from then on, we started Church Online as Redeemer. And here we are. Easter Sunday was when we launched Redeemer Online. Good Friday was when Jubilee officially closed. And so some of you may have been around for all of that time, right? Some of you, there's a few of you who've been around for a long period of time as part of Jubilee. Some of you, maybe it's just the very last part. Maybe you've just started connecting with us over the pandemic and online, or maybe you're just here for your very first Sunday today. For me, it was nearly 15 years ago that I came to Jubilee. That's the one, Sam, get that off. We're in the mid, just to give this some context, I don't normally look like that, if you can see it. It's just that we're in like a pretty intense GoldenEye battle on N64, and that's my concentrating face, but get that off. But it was nearly 15 years ago that I joined this church this is where I want to give myself, where I want to serve this family, where I want to serve Jesus. And there have been ups and there have been downs. There have been amazing moments and some low moments, but I'm so appreciative of God's faithfulness through this church. I'm so glad that I've had the privilege of getting married to Rachel while being part of this church, having children as part of Jubilee, and just being part of this incredible family. And so if you're up for it, I'd love just to get an idea of where people have been over the years. And so if you've been part of the church for over 20 years, so if you're in the between 20 and 30 year section, I know some people aren't able to come at the moment, so they're at home. But I'd love you, those who are around, if you wouldn't mind standing. Look at that, Pete and Rod are around. Wow. Well, we just want to say thank you for your faithfulness. You have stuck through ups and downs. Let's give them a big clap. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much for your faithfulness. Thank you so much for your serving. You can sit down. Now, if you've been here for, that was 20 to 30 years, if you've been part of the church between 10 and 20, can you stand up for us, please? Between 10 and 20. Let's give them a big clap. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate all that you've done. I'm glad you're with us. Now, if you have been with us between 5 and 10 years, 5 to 10s. If you can stand up. Oh, the boys at the back are already standing up. Anyone else? 5 to 10. Now, if you're in the next category, I just want to commend you. You have made it through a lot of transition, a lot of change, if you stuck with us, if you're in the, so we're going to do 0 to 1s in a minute, but if you're in the 1 to 5 years, can you stand up, please? We'd love to thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to have you with us. And I know this is putting, maybe if this is a bit weirder because maybe it's your first morning today. No, you don't have to stand up if you don't want to. But if you're in, and just bear in mind, if you're part of Redeemer, we want to give these people a big, because we want them to stick around. And so let's give them a big clap. If you're in the 0 to 1s, if you just joined us or you started coming or if it's your first time, if you can stand up, we'd just love to thank you for being here. We're so glad to have you with us, but thank you so much to everyone who just stood up. We just so appreciate all your serving, and you've been with us through ups and downs, through some tricky moments. So we love you. Thank you. Okay, right. I'm excited to hand over to Rodney. Take it away.
Great. What a fun morning, eh? Looking back, it's great to look back, isn't it? Especially at those funny photos of Joel. We must get some more funny photos of Joel up, because the thing about leading the team, one of the things about leading a team, an eldership team, is there's lots of funny photos about you shown at regular intervals. So let's try and get one tonight. Somebody just pop it in the picture slot and we'll make some more fun of Joel. Okay. So a couple of things I want to talk about. The first one is the international impact of Jubilee. And this is really far too big to, I can't really do it justice in the small amount of time I've got. But actually, it's the thing that I think I'm most proud of, that our impact in the nations gets me most excited. I mean, there's lots of things that get me excited, actually, but this one of them. It's right up there. And I think, I don't know, I haven't passed this one by these guys, but I actually honestly think it was something to do with a unique blend of leadership that came together at one time that created a phenomenal international impact. So having Colin Nichols, having Fuzi with us, having Mark and Oti with us, and some others, I just think that it propelled us in a way into the nations that maybe we wouldn't have done quite so rapidly, and also because of Steve Oliver. So we linked with Steve Oliver, and he's the guy who's the father of Regions Beyond, if you like, the movement that we're part of. And so Steve, together with these propelled us into the nations. And so, one of the many things that we did, for instance, is we had African songs on a Sunday morning. Let's have one now. That is not your average UK church, is it? I mean, I don't know. What can I say? It was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, and so many things that I could mention. I mean, we had a language school linked to the church for a while. Do you remember we had a graduation on a Sunday morning when all the students came and they received their awards and that? What a thing that was. What a reflection of something of the nations. And the nations came to us and we went to the nations. And we sent families. Sorry, there's not slides for all these. It would be lovely if you had the time to do that. But Mark and Oti, they went to the nations twice, South Africa, then Lesotho, and then finally went for good. So they're in Finland now, and Oti's back soon, so she'll pop along, I'm sure. Clinton and Joanne, I mean, sorry, absolute heroes. You know, went to Albania. Of all the places you go to, Albania, 4.5 years in Albania. Aaron and Helen went to Lesotho. Colin and Pam, they spent 3 months in Lesotho and then went to South Africa. Pam and Diane went to South Africa. Fuzi, of course, was with us for about 3 years, and then we sent him to Dubai. And he's been there ever since. And even recently, Paul and Jan have come back from France to be with us again. It's lovely to have them back amongst us. So, you know, sending families to the nations for long periods of time is an impressive thing. But we took teams around the world. So we took teams to South Africa and Lesotho. I think there was about 6 teams went there. We took 2 teams to India, to Mumbai. But I think the most special relationship in terms of overseas is, I think, our relationship with Albania, if I'm honest. We took the first team in 2009. That is the most unforgettable trip that we ever had. I mean, the presence of God that fell on us was the most phenomenal moment. I've still never had a moment quite like that in my life, and I've had a few since. And we brought something back. We brought something of the Spirit back, and actually, it actually birthed a prophetic ministry in me. That was because we took a team to Albania. We weren't expecting it, were we? Mick and Sue, we were not expecting it. And so in total, there were, have we got the team up? There should be a one of the whole team that went out. That's it, there they are. You're all looking a bit younger then. So we took 5 teams to Albania. And as a family, the Haggers went there twice on mission, but also other families went. So other people went on their holidays to Albania to link up with Clinton to be part of the church. Pete and Heather, for instance, went there. Tom and his mum, Norma, went there. I mean, that shows how special that relationship was. Not only that, 3 lots of elders and wives. Remember Pete? We went out there. We laid hands on Clinton and made him an elder in the church over there. And we funded things. We funded a car for the church. Also, twice, you may not know this, twice, 2 years in a row, we hired a hotel and we paid for the Living Water Church, for the whole church to go and have a conference 2 years in a row in this hotel. So we, Jubilee, put the conference on for them. We were the speakers. Great conference. And the thing is this, they are so poor, that was the only holiday they ever had. They never had any other holiday. So for them, it was massive. There's a picture of them there. It was a massive thing to go and be in a hotel for a couple of days. So how we bless them, how we help them. Do you know what? I learned so much from Albania. I learned so much about people who have very little. They have very, very little. And I realized they're richer than me. Because I thought, you've got something, you got something in God that I haven't got. But the incredible thing is I took something away in God that I then needed. And it enriched us. You know what you do? You build the local church by going to the nations. You take a team to the nations, God will do in 1 week what would take a year or more to do here. So can I encourage you, when we want to take the team to the nations, we want to do this again. So looking forward, we want to partner again with many nations across the world. We want to build friendships and serve them and learn from them. And so just as a little token of that, this coming Saturday, there is a Regions Beyond prayer meeting on Zoom for Africa. We'll send the details out during the week. why don't you log into that? Maybe God will speak to you even about a country in the continent of Africa, and maybe he'll link your heart even on this Saturday. Okay, so moving on then quickly. This was a bit quicker, this one. Salvation. Another great feature of Jubilee were the many, many Alpha courses that we ran over many years. I was trying to list all the places, and I just keep thinking of new ones all the time. We ran Alpha in the Luxor, in Poppy Fields Cafe, in the Thieves Kitchen, in the Libertine, in the Orchard Cafe, in the Library Theatre, in the Noor Indian Restaurant, that was a good one, in the AWM offices, in English Martyr Church, at the Arlington Hotel. We even went to the Royal Norfolk Hotel in Bognor, which I passed the other day. I thought, hang on, we went there for Alpha as well, because we had an away day. Joel, you were on that one. And there'll be more. I just can't remember them all. I mean, that's 10, 11 places. We did Alpha all over town and beyond because we didn't have our own venue. And over the years, many, many people came to Christ. And the problem is I really wish I had a list, and I have no list. But one I remember very, very much, and that's our very own Val John. Give us a wave, Val. There she is at the back. Val, what was the year that you became a Christian? 2003, on an Alpha course in the Library Theatre in Worthing. Val became a Christian, and she's now on staff, and many, many more. And some of you became Christians through Alpha. And of course, what it means is people get saved, they then need to be baptized. And so baptisms have been a lovely feature. So as a result of Alpha, also as a result of New Day, of course, which has been really important with young people connecting and being born again and then saying, I'm going to follow Christ. And also the day-to-day preaching of the gospel has led to many, many people being baptized. And we baptise people all over the place. We baptised them in a paddling pool in the High Street car park. Denise, we baptised you in a loft tank in Hove, didn't we? And that was a good one. Who's done a loft tank before? I've done a loft tank, and the Lord blessed it. We've done swimming pools in the garden in Goring. We did, I don't know if you remember this one, the Lancing College swimming pool. We were there. I think we did another swimming pool one, but I can't remember which one it was. Probably the Aquarina, before they bulldozed it. And on a Sunday morning, we've used a portable baptistry many times. And of course, we've been in the sea. And in 2 weeks' time, as has already been plugged, we're going to be doing it in the sea again for Redeemer's first baptisms. So try and be there. And so that's obviously looking forward. We want to see many more people follow Jesus. We want to be running many more Alpha courses. So we're going to be running an Alpha course in January next year. That'll be Redeemer's first Alpha course. No, we've done an online one, actually. That'll be Redeemer's second. We did an online one. That would be their second Alpha course. But that will be here at the Gilbourne Centre. So that's exciting. So I just want to, if you've been baptised by Jubilee, just put your hand up. Love to see. Give them a round of applause. Isn't that amazing? Praise God. Wonderful. And I'm going to hand over to Pete now.
Thank you. So one of the things that being involved in the Nations got us involved with was obviously Steve Oliver. And one of the themes that Steve had was working with the poor, which very much fitted with our heart. All the time I've been part of a Jubilee. It's been a key part of what we see as part of the mission, is to be involved in the poor. One of Steve's perspectives on it came from Psalm 113. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ashes, from the ash heap, to make them sit with the princes of his people. God's involvement with the poor is not just here you are, you stay down there, you carry on. I am powerful, I am mighty, I'll just bestow my blessing on you. What he does is he raises people up. And that's what he's done with all of us. That's been a feature of our lives. We were poor. We needed him, and he lifted us up. And so our involvement with the poor isn't a sort of handout thing, a sort of token gift. It's because we see them as part of the calling of God on the world, to be involved in that. They're not just poor to remain poor. They're poor to be released into what God's called them to. And so everywhere, I remember in many ways, many times we've been involved in thinking, how can we serve the poor to mobilize them, to release what God's put into them. So we've done a number of things. I remember one of the first things, we got invited to start the food bank here in Worthing. I remember sitting in I'm trying to think of the direction of things, the hotel over there, sat there. Colin Nicholas came and said, we've been asked by the council to start up the food bank. We said, what's a food bank? And now food bank is like a national household word, isn't it? Everybody knows about food banks, but at that time we had no idea what one was. This concept of collecting food as part of the normal weekly shop, and then we'd be able to distribute it to people in that moment of need, before other things kicked in, before social services get things sorted out, people who suddenly found themselves in enormous need. And now, just over this last year, it's been a massive thing. And we've been hugely privileged to be part of that. Other things we've done, the furniture project, which Mark Anote started off, then sort of went quiet for a while, and then Sharon and Pete got involved with that, developed into Reloved. Okay. Which was a great thing, seeing people not just involved in giving out furniture to households that had nothing, that moved into empty shells, but also people involved in doing that process, people who had no way of they had no money to give, but they had time, and they had experience, and they had energy, and they had things to do. And people who are, some of those people who are kind of on the streets even could get involved in that, which was the next thing we got involved in, the soup run, and serving the community of homeless here in Worthing. Then we also managed to get involved with the night shelter. A huge deal across bringing churches together across Worthing and helping us to be involved in that, serving the homeless community over the winter periods when to stop them from having to be out on the streets. It's been a huge privilege for us to be part of that, and to not just the linking with the other churches, but to be involved in what God is doing amongst the poor. I can't imagine how we would have been if we'd not been that. It was so integral to who we were. Joel's already mentioned how we planted into Littlehampton, and church planting has been on our heart all the way through. We are a church plant, a plant out of the Brighton church into Lancing and then Worthing. And people often say, you give away your best. But obviously that's not true, because I'm looking at some of the best people out there. But we gave away some good people. Over the years, we gave away enormously, generously, and I'm really grateful that we did. We've never held anybody back from following what God has called them to. Even Colin and Pam going into the nations. Key people who you would just want to hang on to. Looking at Colin leading that worship just there, when you're thinking, wasn't it great having a guy who could play that sort of music? We send him back to Africa. Send him off to Africa to go and do it there. But the church plant into Littlehampton, where we gave away 25 people or so, with Martin, again, one of our leaders here, to go and do what God had called us to there. We were talking the other day about how that happened. There was a prophetic word about planting churches, but also we got a call from the Anglican Church saying, we've got this empty church building in Littlehampton, and would you be interested in having that and making use of it? And then, of course, that fell through. But by that time, God had got our interest. He'd spoken to us about what he could do in Littlehampton. And now there's a thriving church community that's blessing that town as part of the other churches there. And I'm sure in the future there'll be many more. Just to summarize, obviously we've talked about what we've done, but through it all, fundamentally it's what God has done, isn't it? We know we're useless, but we're not hopeless. We're full of hope because we have an incredible God who has sustained this thing from the moment when God himself spoke to Terry all those years ago in South Africa and said, I want to plant this group. And his faithfulness to that word, to seeing it through, using ordinary people like you and me to do these things, to see this thing happen, to bless this town through the ups and downs, through the failures, through the successes, through the gifts, through the lack of gifts, through shortages of money, through plenty of money, through ins and outs, just like the story of Israel, how he led them in moments of great prosperity and great poverty, and great need and great blessing. The high points of, when David and Solomon are on the throne, and the low points. And yet God is faithful through it all. It's great to be in a church that goes with God, isn't it? That has to be our characteristic. It has been our characteristic, and it will never, ever change. That's a non-negotiable in our life. It'd be great to pray just to finish up, because I want to thank God for what he's done. Father, we thank you for your faithfulness to us as a community, as a people carrying your promises, carrying your heart. We thank you that we have always been on your heart, that you have never taken your eye off us. We have been the center of your gaze, and you have loved us. And you have poured out your love upon us. You have loved us with an everlasting love. You have been faithful to us through thick and thin. And we are so grateful to you. We could have done nothing without you. We will never be able to do anything without you. We will never be sufficient on our own. We will always be dependent on you. But we're grateful that you will never let us down. You will never see us wanting, because you have all resources and you are committed to your church, that you will build your church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. You will expand your kingdom and your throne is unshakable. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.